This is part one of a two-part reflection on the early church in Jerusalem and on the hidden role of James, the brother of Jesus. Robert Eisenman, one of the most respected scholars on the Dead Sea Scrolls, argued that the book of Acts was edited and reshaped in a way that pushed James out of the center of the story.
All the early church texts, Hegesippus, Eusebius, and all of them tell us that right after Jesus was ascended, an election was held for who was to lead the early church, the bishop of Jerusalem, and James was elected. That's where he was introduced, in the book of Acts. But our present book of Acts don't have it. They have the inconsequential election to fill the office of Judas Iscariot. And you're thrown totally off the scheme. And the person elected, you don't even know who he is, do you? What's his name? Matthias. We've already got a Matthew in the Gospels, another one, Matthias. We never hear from him again. It's totally unimportant. And the real thing, the sleight of hand that's going on, the real election is James, the brother of Jesus. But Acts doesn't want to tell us about that. It wants dissimulation, disinformation, to throw you off so you don't understand the early history, so you won't give him any importance.
And when we look closely, this absence raises a serious question. If James was truly the brother of Jesus, if he led the earliest community of believers, if his death played a role in the events that led to the destruction of the temple, then why is James almost invisible in the New Testament? Outside of the short letter that bears his name, James is barely mentioned. And that silence suggests more than coincidence. It suggests removal. But when we turn to other early sources, to Josephus, to Hegesippus, to Clement of Alexandria, to Eusebius, we find a very different picture. In these accounts, James is not a minor figure. He is the leader of the Jerusalem community, the one entrusted with preserving the original teachings of Jesus. To illustrate this, I will read a passage preserved in the Gospel of the Holy 12, which reflects the memory of the earliest followers. And to the church in Jerusalem was given James the Lord's brother, for its president and angel, and under him 24 ministers and helpers also. And after 6 days many came together, and there were added 6,000 men and women who received the holy law of love, and they received the word with gladness. Even though this is only one verse, it clears the fog. It confirms what the earliest historians recorded. James did not simply belong to the early church. He guided it. He was entrusted with nurturing the community in Jerusalem. He guarded the teachings of Jesus, not as a doctrine, but as a way of life rooted in the law of love. Now, it is important to understand something about the wording in this passage. Terms like priests or deacons may reflect later translation choices, because the formal church titles and hierarchies we associate with later Christianity did not exist yet. The early community was organized, yes, but it was not a church of power. It was a brotherhood and sisterhood led by James, held together by compassion, humility, and daily service. So even if the vocabulary has shifted through time, the structure and memory remain clear. James was the anchor of the earliest community. He was the one who held the teachings in their simplest and most faithful form. The law of love, the kingdom within, the way of compassion and righteousness lived from the inside out. To restore James in the story is not just to correct history. It is to remember what the early followers believed Christianity was before it became an institution, before it became an empire, before it became doctrine and debate. In Part 2, we will look at what happened after the resurrection and how the Gospel of the Holy 12 and the Book of Acts describe that moment differently. Because how the Holy Spirit is understood and to whom leadership is given determines the shape of the entire faith that follows.